welcome to our live session. I'm your host today, Sing Tong. Do you shall you have any question or suggestion? Do hit them up in our comment section below, and remember to stay tuned till the end of our live session. And as we will be giving out two of our newsletter subscription to the winners. Do remember to hit the like and share button for this Facebook Live and the subscribe button for our YouTube channel. The topic today is part two, whether to buy or sell Chinese stock. And the person joining us is Mr. Teng Boo, our fund manager. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Hi.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Tan.
Hi.
You've been very busy recently. Do you have any planning for the upcoming Chinese New Year holiday?
Yeah, I mean, I just did my first international long haul flight to our Sydney office about a week ago.
Yep.
It was quite an eye opener because before that the only flight that I've done was from KL to Singapore. So this is to Sydney, and the flight is about 8-9 hours, and you're just wondering what it would be like. I think, when we landed in Sydney, I was quite surprised that nobody was wearing masks.
Oh.
Yeah, in the plane it was not compulsory, and in the airport in Sydney itself, all the Australians, they were walking like as if there was no virus, there was no COVID. Everybody was very normal. If you wear mask, you look like the
unique one,
the abnormal one. So yeah, I've been doing that, starting to do that kind of traveling. And you're right. I mean, in Australia, they're preparing for Christmas, which is what, about a week. Today is 60.
Next week, yeah.
Next week, right? And then after that is Chinese New Year.
Yep.
I guess in our case, before that, there are a lot of things that we're doing. For example, on the 7th of January 2023, I think it's the first Saturday of 2023.
7th of January.
Yeah, I think it's the first Saturday of 2023, right? So we are having a special fund gathering where we will talk about what investors should do. If you have Chinese stocks, whether you should buy or sell them, or if you have not bought Chinese stocks yet, whether you should be buying them. So it's a very special gathering that we organize. It's a physical event, and we've been preparing for that. So after that's 7th of January, Chinese New Year is 22nd, right?
Yeah.
So you have only 15 days to go and buy a new red shirt, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very busy for the next 6 weeks.
Oh, so you'll be busy to preparing the 7th January, the special gathering.
Yeah, because
for the investor.
Because that gathering is half a day, so there are a lot of research and materials to do, and a lot of analysis to present.
Then shall we get into a question for our topic today?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first question is from John Doe. Then he asks, would the US relentless targeting the Chinese company like TikTok, Huawei, or chip industry negatively impact China's economy and stock market?
No, I mean, if you trace the US-China relations over a long period, right? If you go back to 150 years ago, when China was under the Qing dynasty, the time China was bullied by Britain, by France, by Japan, by US. So China suffered, but still China survived and able to emerge successfully.
Yep.
Then when the Communist Party of China came in 1949, the US continued, particularly the US, continued to bully, I call it bully, to oppress and bully China. And I think most people don't realize, because most people don't do history as deeply as I do. When the CPC, when the Communist Party of China came in 1949, the US under President Truman and Eisenhower and all that imposed a lot of sanctions on China, a lot of embargoes, a lot of sanctions on China. And at the time, China was super poor.
Yeah.
The Chinese Navy had only a few very old ships. The Chinese Air Force, they had so few aeroplanes, right, jet planes, that when they organized the victory, the announcement of the formation of PRC in October 1949, when the jet planes flew over in the bypass, because there were so few planes. So what they did is they wanted the Chinese government wanted to show that they actually have more planes than what they actually have. So what they do is after the planes flew bypass the Tiananmen Square, then they'll make one big look. They'll make one big circle, right, and pretend as if there's another batch of planes coming in again. So that was how backward, how poor China was in 1949, and there were a lot of sanctions, a lot of embargoes, which is actually worse than now. But yet, since then, China has successfully developed and grown. So, after the Tiananmen incident, the US and the Western European countries also imposed sanctions again. Guess what? After 2-3 years, China boom again. So the sanctions and the tension between US and China now, I think China is used to it. China has been so used to being bullied, right, for so long. It's no big deal. And the current sanctions, war that been sort of declared by US on China, it's not just now, it's not just Biden. It actually started with Barack Obama.
Oh.
Yeah, Barack Obama. I think Barack Obama is one of America's most useless president. Within a few months, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. What did he do within the few months that he became president? He did nothing. He got the Nobel Peace Prize, and then one of the first things that he did was what is known as pivot to Asia. That means he switched the US foreign policy to focus on containing China. Pivot to Asia. It called pivot to Asia, but it's actually pivot to China. So that started it. That started this containment in a very comprehensive manner. But Obama's pivot to Asia didn't succeed. It failed. Then when Trump came in, Trump escalated it, increased the pressure on China, right? By particularly at the trade level through all kinds of tariffs and also widen it. Trump didn't succeed as well. So now Biden, when he took over from Trump, has continued this pivot, this containment of China that started by Obama. Biden has made it even more comprehensive. All the tariffs that Trump imposed are still there, and Biden has expanded it to a large extent. So, to answer the question, what will be the impact on China? Well, China will continue to grow and develop, and this kind of pressure that Biden is putting on China now, it confirms what Xi Jinping has been telling the Chinese people. Xi Jinping has been telling the Chinese people for many, many years, be prepared for difficult times, be prepared for very challenging times. They are ready for it, and this is going to motivate the Chinese people to innovate and invent even at a faster pace. So yes, 1 year, 2 years, you might have some disruption on the advanced semiconductor packaging and all that. But if you look at it further ahead, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, I'm pretty confident that China will be at least at par with US, if not even ahead of the US. So I'm not concerned with this temporary noises, temporary kind of irritation that US loves to create.
Yeah. Because China is already used to being bullied and they have overcome it for a long time, right? Oh, we have
overcome successfully.
Yeah. We have a comment said by Wei Chun say, in the history book, the period is called cutting the Chinese lemon, Chinese melon. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Because what they did was they meaning Britain, France, Germany, and tiny, small, little fat countries like Belgium and all that, right? Together with, to some extent, Russia, Japan, and US, they slice up China. They take up, okay, you take Qingdao, you take Hong Kong, you take Shanghai. They divided China into different pieces. Yeah.
Oh, we have a question from YouTube. What is the current opportunity for local investor in China vs US electric vehicle outlook?
Oh, there are plenty. Look, if you are a Malaysian investor, you have a few you have a few alternatives, right? You can invest in Malaysian stocks. Then, of course, you have to decide what stocks to choose, right? Or you can invest in American stocks, right? I mean, the US market is huge and they've been dropping quite badly. Or you can invest in the Chinese stocks, right? So each investment destination, whether it's Malaysian stocks, American stocks, or Chinese stocks, would have their risk reward profile. So you have to determine what is the risk reward ratio that is the most attractive to you. So in our talk on the 7th of January, which is half a day, it's quite a lengthy talk. And we will just focus on the risk reward profile of investing in Chinese stocks. Or like we said, if you don't feel comfortable, you might want to sell, right? But let me just uh, before I answer that question, I think people have forgotten that the last 3 years, now it's December 2022, since January, February 2020, which is about 3 years ago, the investment world has changed, has gone upside down. Investment has gone upside down because the uh, global economic situation has turned upside down. The global geopolitical situation has deteriorated, particularly with the Ukrainian crisis, and the global environment has also turned upside down because of extreme weather patterns. So in the last 3 years, if I were to ask you, Singtong, in say somewhere in early 2020, buy Amazon.com, it's e-commerce, right?
Yeah, true.
And with the pandemic, with all this lockdown, sure,
We'll
right,
search.
sure, you end up a sure winner.
Yeah.
Guess what? If you bought Amazon.com around say middle of 2020, by now you're losing money.
Oh.
I mean, most people don't realize.
Yes.
Amazon is such a giant, right? And wow, how can I buy Alibaba? The Chinese government is against Jack Ma, blah blah blah. The share price dropped so much, but they don't realize that Amazon.com doesn't have a Jack Ma, right? Amazon.com, the Jeff Bezos has not been singled out by the US government. But if you have bought Amazon.com in the middle of 2020 and now, you hardly make any money. So that's how difficult it is to invest in the last 3 years. You buy glove stock in March 2020, by now you lose 70%.
True.
Right? If you buy semiconductor stocks, well, depending on where and when, but a lot of like the example I give you, like TSMC, which is the supposed mother of all semiconductors. So if you buy somewhere in middle of 2020, right, before the recently it's rebounded quite well, but before that, in say August, September, you wouldn't have made a single cent in buying TSMC.
Oh.
That's how difficult the investment world has been in the last 3 years. So to answer the question, yes, for Malaysian investors, there are opportunities uh, at our end at Capital Dynamics. We got three funds. We got the iCapital China Fund, which is pure China stocks. We got the International Value Fund, where about 70% of the fund's portfolio is invested in Chinese stocks. And then we have the iCapital Global Fund. About 70% is also invested in Chinese stocks. So these three funds, right? The iCapital China Fund is only $1,000 minimum. The International Value Fund is 20,000 Aussie. The iCapital Global Fund is 100,000 USD. So depending on your scale investment, you can choose any one of them. And all these three funds have got huge, substantial exposure to Chinese stocks.
I see.
So to answer the question, in that three funds that we manage, we got exposure to electric vehicles.
I see. Teng Boo, I would like to take the privilege to ask you a question regarding the caption that we put in our Facebook Live. It's like the China agreed to let the US officially inspect the audit work for the Chinese company that listed in US stock exchange, right? Will this affect the Chinese stock in a positive way or in a negative way? What is your point of view?
Good question. It will remove a major uncertainty. I mean, in the first place, let get the facts correct, right? That so-called negative uh, event was only in terms of people's perception. So, okay, if you don't list in Nasdaq, you don't list in NY, okay, I go and list in Hong Kong, my business still survive, you know. So fundamentally, business-wise, it doesn't really affect it, but it makes it difficult for, say, if you're an American investor and you are not a big investor, right? It makes it more difficult for you to buy Chinese stocks, right? That's all there is to it. But now that the Chinese companies will be allowing the US regulators to full audit, then of course look, the NYSE also will love to have the Chinese stocks continue being listed there, right? It's good business, it's big business for NYSE and Nasdaq. So now that they can continue, well, both sides will win. You know, both sides are happy.
So in your opinion,
it's a positive development. Yeah, it removes a major uncertainty.
I see. Then for the second question, I would like to ask that Chinese for our last week video, we say that the Chinese is exiting the zero COVID policy, right? So, but when they exit, the COVID-19 cases surge in China. So, will the Chinese authority will come up with a similar policy like the zero COVID policy? And in the future,
I think you've been listening too much to CNN and BBC.
yeah, I got it from CNN.
I think it will help you to have a clearer picture, a clearer mind if you switch off CNN and BBC, you know, and then maybe switch on to CGTN or CCTV. But to answer your question, look, the Chinese government has been the most prepared government in the world in dealing with the pandemic. But that doesn't mean that there are no mistakes, there are no hiccups, there will be, right? And they know that when they exit from this, especially in the last few weeks where all kinds of relaxations were announced, of course, there's going to be a huge surge in infection. But why did the Chinese government allow it in the first place? Is it because for political reason, or is it because the Chinese government know fully well that this variant now it is infectious, more transmissible than the earlier variant, but less harmful? It's less lethal. So okay lah, you know, people get more infected, fair enough. And more importantly, which is not highlighted, the Chinese government approved the usage of Paxlovid, that is the Pfizer antiviral drug, right? They approved it in China to be used in China in February this year. But what is interesting now is, I think it was last week or this week, that the Chinese government allowed this Paxlovid antiviral drug to be bought by ordinary Chinese people online.
Oh,
so
there will be a.
Of course, because this Paxlovid drug is to make sure that if you already got COVID, right, the mild to moderate case, you take this drug, then you prevent you from getting you have COVID already. Otherwise, you cannot take this drug. Right? It's where you are mild and moderate cases. Then with this Paxlovid drug from Pfizer, your infection will not worsen. It will not deteriorate to become serious. You don't have to go to ICU and all those things. So, in other words, you will make this COVID-19 to be more like a flu, a normal flu.
So as what you like say, the Chinese government is already prepared for the opening of the they're opening for zero COVID policy.
Yeah, I mean they know that the
Research.
elderly people, those 65 and above, the booster shots were low. They know all that, you know. So this Paxlovid now can be bought online, and I think it was last month. Now it's December. I think it was October that they approved the experimental usage of nasal spray, where you can use the nasal spray for treatment of COVID-19 in a few major cities. I think the infection will increase, definitely. Every country in the world that relaxes this, you see the initial surge, whether it's Korea, whether it's Singapore, or even Malaysia, you see that. But by the Chinese health experts predict that by around Chinese New Year, which is end of January, there will be the peak, and after that, the cases, the infection cases, will all start to come down. So what they're saying is that by February, March next year, China will be like the rest of the world.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So if you're wanting to visit China, maybe you can get prepared.
Can get prepared.
Yeah, to take your flight to Shanghai. Yeah.
Maybe 2023?
Yeah. This is by the first quarter of 2023, by February, March, I can be pretty sure that the Chinese government will make it even easier for international travelers to go inside China.
From a question from our Facebook Live that Huishan asked, since 3 of your fund are heavily invested in the Chinese stock, which one is suitable for me?
Oh, both.
And how do I choose?
They're all suitable. They're all suitable. I mean, look, the iCapital China Fund is a pure China fund. It cannot invest in non-Chinese stocks. The International Value Fund can invest globally. American stocks, British stocks, Australian stocks, and so on. But it so happens that at this point in time, the International Value Fund has got a big exposure to Chinese stocks. The same thing for the Global Fund. It can invest anywhere globally, Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan, and so on. But as of now, it's got substantial exposure to Chinese stocks. The Global Fund is priced in US dollar. The International Value Fund, the pricing currency is in Aussie dollar. So if you're Malaysian, so if you're bullish on the US dollar, then you might want to take the Global Fund or the iCapital China Fund, which is also in US dollar, right? But if you're bullish on the Aussie dollar, right, or you have children or in Australia, or you want to migrate to Australia, then the International Value Fund, which is in Aussie dollar, might be more suitable for you from a currency point of view. Yeah. So the three funds have got different currencies. They've got different type of investment exposure. So if you always want a pure Chinese exposure, then the iCapital China Fund is the one. But if you think that, well, and you think that we as a fund manager would be able to handle it, that sometime in the future, I mean, look, the US markets, the US stock markets are under severe pressure because the US Federal Reserve has just announced today's announced 2 days ago, right, that US interest rates will go higher than originally planned and will stay at a high level longer than what originally was forecasted. So that's why the US markets have since then have been dropping, right? But no bear market lasts forever. So if you think that you like to have a fund where you can swing from China stocks to American stocks, then the International Value Fund or the iCapital Global Fund will be more suitable, because there will come a point in time when the Chinese stocks may not be so attractive as other stocks, right? Vice versa.
Okay. We got a question from YouTube, our YouTube live from Tan Han Wui. During the COVID prevention state, China will have many volunteer work in screening tests and etc. With work stop, will this cause any social issues?
I think in the next 6 to 8 weeks, as China opens up, expect every country, especially in East Asia, it's the same thing for Korea, the same thing for Taiwan, the same thing for Japan and Singapore. When you open up at this stage, the first 1 or 2 months there are disruptions, right? Expect the same for China, and I think there could even be some supply chain disruptions, because the this variant is so transmissible, right? And then human beings, wherever they are, whether you're in China or in America, human beings, some of them will be the brave type. Yeah, never mind, let's live life normally. There'll be another segment of society that say, no, 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 I don't want, I don't want to take the risk. So you have that different components of a society. So in the next 6 to 8 weeks, the same thing will happen to China, where some of the Chinese people will still be scared and may dare not even go to work or dare not even go shopping, right? And there'll be another segment that said, no, look, we already gone through this for 3 years, let's live life as normally. So what I'm saying is this, the next 6 to 8 weeks, the China needs that period to get the citizens get used to a new normal, and then let the situation normalize. So it takes about 1 to 2 months. In that 1 or 2 months, expect some
Chaos.
disruption. I wouldn't use the word chaos because chaos is a very big word. Chaos is like I might get my head chopped off. No, 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 not like that. It's disruption where there's a lot of uh, nervousness, a lot of uncertainties, and then by the time Chinese New Year come, people say, hey, after Chinese New Year, no,
Nothing.
the world hasn't come to an end. I'm still alive. Okay, okay.
Steady lah.
Yeah. Then you stabilize after that.
Okay, so the same question from Tan Han Wu, I mean the same person, Tan Han Wu, asking, Beidou coverage is expanding very fast. So what is it means to the telecommunication business between China and Southeast Asia?
Good, no? I mean, at least you got a competitor to GPS, right? All the time you all use your Waze, your Google, you rely on the US GPS. I mean, you don't even know that the US government is spying on you. I mean, everybody keeps saying, "Oh, I'm so worried that the Chinese government will spy on me," but don't you realize that the CIA or the U.S. National Security Agency, the NSA, has been spying on you? Everywhere you go, you have Google Waze. They know, today you went to Klang, today you went to this, right? They have been keeping track on you. That's how the CIA, that's how the U.S. Military is able to send a drone and directly point at somebody in Afghanistan or direct somebody in Iraq and kill that person. Otherwise, how would they know where you are?
True.
Right. So now at least you got a competitor to the GPS, and the Pay2 is more accurate, more advanced than GPS. So I would definitely hope that in the years to come, we are able to rely on Pay2 instead of GPS.
Oh, okay. One question from Epi Life. So which asked, Mr. Tan, what is your opinion? Why China does not allow the use of NRA drugs made by the Western labs?
Why should they? I mean, they got their own drugs.
True.
Right.
Also,
Why is it that the Western governments don't approve the Chinese drugs?
because they bully China, ma.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, they got their own drugs. They got so many, right? And I think people have forgotten. Like I've said, I think previously, throughout the 5,000 years of Chinese history, there have been 886 years where there were epidemics. Right. Last time they called epidemics. 886 years. So Chinese medicine, Chinese government, Chinese authority has got plenty of experience in dealing with pandemics or epidemics, right? And every epidemic, every pandemic, whether it's 5,000 years ago or now, affects the same organ, it affects the same lungs, it affects the same nose. The nose, now and the nose, your nose 5,000 years ago is still the same, right? So the experience of the Chinese people in dealing with these sort of things goes back a long, long period of time. And why would I need to use other vaccines? I mean, you can see how the American government has done, right? They know that you need the EUV lithography machine from ASML. Okay, they ask ASML not to sell to your SMIC. They know that you need US persons who are experienced in semiconductor industry. They are banned. They're not allowed to work in Chinese companies. So can you imagine the US government using the Western drugs to punish China? Okay, right now let's say China doesn't have their own vaccine, right? Then I say, okay, I'm going to ban all the Pfizer, all the Moderna drugs to China. Then what am I going to do?
Nothing to use.
Right. So the way the US government does it is they will take every possible thing that they can and weaponize it. Everything is weaponized by the US government. So if I were the Chinese government, of course I'll be scared.
Yeah, true. One question from our Facebook live viewer, David D. He asked, how Chinese stock market is going to rise when majority of the Western fund is having China for big?
When having China what?
Having China for big. Scared of
okay,
China.
okay. I think because we got a bit straight because the talk is supposed to be whether you should sell or buy Chinese stocks, right? I think there are some funds that will still be scared. They will still not invest in China. Whether there's COVID or not COVID, they'll still stay away from China because if they cannot think of COVID, they'll think of maybe corruption, maybe they think of pollution, maybe they think of dictatorship. They'll think of something just not to invest in China.
Communist.
Right? It's a communist country, right? But there are a lot of other funds, right, in the world, not just from US, that look at it objectively. Look, this is an investment. I look at it from a risk reward profile, and I look at the reward outweigh the risk. And are you saying that if I invest in US stocks, there are no risk? There are. So this US funds and all that, I mean, if you don't just listen to CNN and BBC, there are many of them that actually are actually very bullish about Chinese stocks. Yeah. So that's why we're having this special gathering on the 7th of January. It is free for existing investors of three funds. You have priority, you can register and come. For those who are not currently our investors but who are thinking about it, you're welcome. We invite you to come and it's free. And we'll give you, because the talk is about half a day, so we'll explain to you in much greater detail as to what are the risks if you invest in Chinese stocks now and what are the rewards to invest in Chinese stocks. And then you can make your decision after that.
Okay. We have a question from Yu Yok Leong, also from our FB Live. She asked, will the US-China trade war continue to be worse after US sanctioned China semiconductor?
Yeah, in a sense, if you compare, let's say, during the time when Trump was president, when Biden came in, most people were expecting Biden to actually remove or reduce some of the tariffs, but he hasn't. He has actually added on. And I think the word trade war is very misleading now. It's not a trade war anymore. It's
all aspect.
Yeah, all aspect except that it's a one-sided war. If you look at it from the Chinese perspective, they don't call it a war. Why? Because the Chinese government has not responded, has not retaliated. To have a war, you must have both sides fighting.
Yeah, true.
Right? Now you only have one side, which is the American side, fighting. They're the one announcing all the measures, but the Chinese side has been very calm. Right? Of course, they'll make a few noises here and there that they'll take serious measures. But on the whole, the Chinese government has not really retaliated and not responded. So, is it a war? Yes, it is a one-sided war. And in the case of Biden, yes, Biden has taken an approach which is different from Trump. Trump wanted to take on China based on America alone. Biden is a lot smarter, a lot more devious. He's ganging up. He's pressurizing Japan, pressurizing Korea, pressurizing Germany. If you don't gang up with me against China, you cannot get this. So Japan, Japanese people, they always keep bowing. Of course, they bow to America, all right. So the Biden strategy now is to gather all these people, whether it is Netherlands, UK, Australia, and all that, and gang up and go against China in terms of not just the trade side, not just the economic side, but cultural, education, and technology. Right. So this will continue. It will continue to worsen, but I think that's why when you invest in Chinese stocks, uh, you got to be conscious of the fact that you may be the company that you invest in may be subjected to certain things. Previously, Hikvision, which is based in Hangzhou, which is to do with facial recognition, it was put on entity list. Yeah, for a time, the share price dropped, but because their business a lot is based on the Chinese domestic market, so eventually the stock price recovered. So I think to answer the question, you have to know the fundamentals of the company that you invest in. You have to know what kind of risk, what kind of markets they're serving. So there are many companies like Alibaba's business. Alibaba's business is hardly nothing much to do with US. It's basically domestic based and increasingly outside of China, like Southeast Asia through Lazada and in Africa and so on. So the trade war that US is imposing on China doesn't really affect a company like Alibaba. So I think if one does one research carefully, then you'll be able to pick out, you'll be able to isolate the risk and stay away from those that can be substantially be affected by any kind of US actions.
Mr. Tan, shall we have the last question
Sure,
before we
sure,
end
sure.
our live session?
Sure.
Okay. So from the question of our YouTube live viewer, Edward Teo, he asked, sorry, I just joined. My unit trust, which is quite China heavy in terms of allocation, is hammered like mad this year.
Okay.
I just sitting this out and intending to sell when they are ready.
Okay.
Would like to hear your opinion on this.
I think maybe the better can let. I'm not sure what fund Edward has invested in. Definitely not our fund. But if Edward, you have the time, come and attend our gathering on the 7th of January, and you will see. You can see for yourself the way we do our analysis, the way we do our research, right? And then maybe you can feel more confident, or you feel that we are almost the same as the other people, right? So whether you want to sell or not, I cannot say because I don't really know what fund you have, and more importantly, I do not know what companies your unit trust fund has invested in, right? Say in our case, we know our funds have invested in solid companies, and in fact, I mean, just to share with the audience, in the last now is December, the last 1 or 2 months, we've actually been steadily buying more and more Chinese stocks. Right?
Well, time flies. It's almost the end of our live session. And Mr. Tan, shall we choose two of our winner
okay.
for the
Sure,
newsletter subscription?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe just to encourage Edward to come, maybe we can pick him as one of the winners.
Okay.
Right.
One Edward and one more.
I can't remember the names of the others.
Yeah, here. Here.
There were a few very good questions,
For example?
Yeah, but I can't remember the names.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one that's Edward, and then David Lee is maybe David Lee.
David Lee.
Yeah, the
About
China
the
phobic.
China phobic.
Yeah.
Okay. Congrats to Mr. Edward and Mr. David. And stay tuned to our channel and our Facebook as we will having a 7th January gathering and we will announce it.
And every Saturday, 11 o'clock, we have Facebook Live. Yeah.
Yep.
And next Saturday, promise no more Chinese stocks, right?
Thank you for joining us. Do invest Gao Gao in our live and share Facebook and our subscription in YouTube. You can find our YouTube channel in by the name Capital Dynamics, and see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.